This disposable stick helped build the modern world. Without it, there would be no mass literacy, no precision engineering, no moon missions. The secret history of the pencil begins in 1564, when a violent storm ripped through England's Lake District and exposed a black mineral so valuable the Crown classified it as a military asset and threatened anyone caught smuggling it with exile. That strange, smudgy rock was about to quietly reshape civilization. Borrowdale's hills held their secrets until the winter of 1564, when a storm tore through the slate and soil, stripping the land bare. As the snow receded, shepherds found something strange glinting beneath the roots, a seam of black stone, smooth and heavy, running like a buried ribbon through the valley. Local miners, used to copper and lead, called it plumbago for its metallic sheen, though it held no lead at all. By midsummer, the parish register carried a new complaint, a farmer's sheep marked with quick, dark lines courtesy of this mysterious mineral. Shepherds had shaped thin rods from the fresh deposit, branding their flocks with a mark that lasted through rain and wind. Word traveled fast. Sir George Bowes wrote to a London merchant, marveling at the mineral's ability to streak wool, parchment, even churchyard stone, all without a drop of ink. For the first time, a steady, portable line was possible, drawn not with quill or brush, but with a piece of the mountain itself. Word of Borrowdale's black stone quickly reached the highest levels of power. In 1567, Queen Elizabeth I issued a royal warrant that transformed the quiet valley into a guarded asset. The Crown claimed the entire mine, dispatching agents to oversee every ounce of extracted plumbago. From that moment, every shipment was destined not for artists or merchants, but for the Royal Gun Foundry at Woolwich. Foundry logs from the 1570s record barrels of graphite arriving under armed watch, then disappearing into the furnace rooms. Mixed with iron, this mineral lined the insides of cannon barrels, reducing wear by nearly a third, and allowing England's artillery to fire longer and harder. The Crown's grip tightened. Smuggling even a handful of graphite became a crime with real consequences. Court rolls from Cockermouth tell of Thomas Whitfield, a miner exiled in 1591 after he was caught with just 5 pounds of the Queen's black ore. Others faced transportation to distant colonies. The valley that once belonged to shepherds now bristled with royal authority, and the price of curiosity had become exile. By the early 1600s, the graphite seam in Borrowdale had become the center of a shadow economy. Smugglers slipped past Crown patrols under cover of night, ferrying chunks of plumbago down hidden tracks to the ports. Liverpool's customs logs from 1612 list seized bundles labeled as clay or stone, but inside were slender rods of graphite, each one tightly wound with horsehair or flax. Dutch merchants like Hendrik Vandermeer wrote home about these contraband sticks, string-bound, easily snapped, and leaving a dark, greasy smear on every ledger and map. Buyers from Amsterdam to Hamburg paid a premium, knowing the black line would outlast any ink, but they cursed the smudges that stained their fingers, and the brittle rods that snapped with a little pressure. No wood casing, no protective shell, just raw, Borrowdale graphite, wrapped and ready for the black market. Every flaw, every oily mark was a reminder. The world wanted a pencil, but no one yet knew how to make one that truly lasted. French engineers faced a crisis in 1794. With the British Navy blocking every route, not a single ounce of Borrowdale graphite could reach Paris. Orders from the Ministry of War piled up, demanding pencils for maps and artillery plans, but the old methods, grinding scraps of low-grade graphite into powder, produced nothing but fragile, crumbling sticks. Into this chaos stepped Nicolas Jacques Conté, a former balloonist turned inventor, who was handed a challenge: create a pencil from scratch, using only what France could supply. Conté filled his notebooks with sketches and formulas. He crushed graphite to dust, then experimented with clay dug from the banks of the Seine. His breakthrough came with a simple ratio: 2 parts clay to 1 part graphite by weight. He kneaded the mixture into a thick, dark paste, then forced it through a metal tube to form slender rods. These rods were dried and then fired in a kiln at 1,200 degrees Celsius. The heat transformed the fragile paste into something new: a pencil core that could survive a fall to the floor, yet still leave a smooth, dark line on paper. A letter from Minister Lazare Carnot in February 1795 records the first field test. Army cartographers praised the new leads for their strength and evenness. Within months, Conte's method was patented, and production began at Saint-Étienne. The pencil was no longer a brittle luxury for smugglers. It had become a reliable tool, shaped by war, ready for the hands of engineers and artists alike. Heinrich Hecht stepped into the pencil business with a problem that had stumped factories across Europe. No one could agree on what made a pencil hard or soft. In 1862, working at the Erfurt pencil factory, Hecht set up rows of test sheets, each pressed with a stylus loaded with a different clay to graphite ratio. He measured how deep each lead bit into the paper and how dark the line remained after a single pass. The lead that struck the balance, a line neither too faint nor so soft it smudged, sat right in the middle. Hecht labeled it HB, for hard black, borrowing the H from French and the B from English. The HB became a fixed point, a reference for every pencil made after. Over time, this shorthand grew into a full spectrum, stretching from 9H, the hardest, to 9B, the blackest and softest. By the 20th century, the HB scale had become the global language of graphite, and in 1975, the International Standards Organization formalized it as ISO 9175. Now a student in Tokyo and an architect in London could reach for the same HB and know exactly how their lines would behave. Thanks to Hecht's experiments, the pencil was no longer just a stick of luck. It was a precision tool, tailored for every hand and every task. Mud and cold do not spare paper or ink, but the pencil endures. In the trenches of the First World War, soldiers reached for a stub of graphite to record names, orders, and fragments of hope. A battered diary from 1917, now in the Imperial War Museum, holds a simple line. The pencil's tip never broke despite the cold. The lead remained dark even after 3 days in the trench water. Shellfire could scatter a kit, but a pencil survived the shock, ready for another mark. The same qualities that kept a soldier's words alive in sodden France would, decades later, be tested in the vacuum of space. When NASA weighed every ounce and failure meant disaster, engineers faced a puzzle. How to write in zero gravity, where ink refused to flow and ballpoints could jam. In 1967, a NASA procurement memo settled the matter. Wooden-cased pencils, 2 millimeters thick, would ride aboard Apollo. They didn't clog, they didn't leak, and they worked even if the cabin lost air. Astronauts carried them as backup long after the Fisher space pen appeared, trusting the old graphite core when every other tool might fail. The pencil's reliability was never theory. It was proven, line by line, in mud and on the edge of the moon. A pencil used to mean commitment. One stroke on the page, and your thoughts were fixed, mistakes immortalized, errors staring back with every reread. Then Hyman Lipman, a Philadelphia stationer with a knack for practical ideas, filed U.S. patent number 20,965 in 1858. His invention was brilliantly simple. A pencil with a piece of rubber, the eraser, secured at the end by a brass ferrule. Suddenly, every line could be undone. The Lippmann pencil swept through classrooms and offices, promising a kind of freedom no pen or ink could match. Erasing became as natural as writing, and the fear of making a mistake lost its bite. For a generation raised on ink blots and crossed out lines, the eraser was a quiet revolution. But by 1875, the Supreme Court stepped in. In Lippmann versus New York Pencil Company, the justices ruled that combining two known tools, the pencil and the eraser, wasn't a true invention. Lippmann's patent vanished, but his idea took root everywhere. Now the pencil wasn't just a tool for recording answers. It became the friendliest device for learning, sketching, and drafting, the first writing instrument that invited you to try, erase, and try again. A pencil in hand does more than leave marks on a page. It shapes how the brain remembers. In 2014, psychologists Pam Mueller and Daniel Oppenheimer set out to test why students who write notes by hand seem to understand lectures better than those who type. Their study, published in Psychological Science, assigned college students to two groups. One wrote with pencils, the other typed on laptops. The typists captured more words, but the pencil group remembered more ideas a week later. The difference wasn't just in content. MR. Scans from a 2016 University of Oslo study led by Marit R. Manjan, revealed that the act of moving a pencil across paper lights up the brain's somatosensory cortex and hippocampus, regions tied to touch and memory. The friction of graphite on paper, the resistance in each stroke, creates a physical memory trace. Researchers call this embodied cognition. The brain ties the shape of each letter to the meaning behind it, making recall stronger and more flexible. Typing, by contrast, turns words into a stream of uniform taps, stripping away the tactile cues that help ideas stick. Even in an age of glass screens and digital shortcuts, the old pencil keeps proving its worth, not just as a tool for writing, but as an engine for remembering. In an era where screens dominate, over 14 billion pencils are still made each year, each one a silent invitation to imagine, revise, and remember. As we race toward digital perfection, the humble pencil reminds us, progress is only possible when we dare to make and erase our own marks.